Hey, everybody. So I am back. And as you know, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. And I have a long memory with Dana Rayburn. So I'm going to introduce her in a moment. I want to say that she is probably one of the premier ADHD coaches in our country. And I had the honor of meeting her, gosh, I think it was like 10 years ago now, maybe a little more, but it was a while back. And we were at a retreat in San Francisco, and I remember we had breakfast that morning, and I've never forgotten that moment. I've never forgotten that moment because we sat down, and it was just, can I sit with you? Yes. And I sat down, and through the conversation, she was telling me about ADHD, and I said, I think I have that. And she said, I think you might. And I went, and it was one of those things, you hear the information, you know what I mean? And it goes to the back of your head, and it just stays there. So when I was suffering, as some of you know, in the last year, and really the last 6 months, and I finally went to my doctor, and I'm going to ask Dana about this as well, because if I crinkle up, don't worry about me. I'm just aging. So it's aging on I think it's my fiber optics. It's aging actually. But anyway, I asked Dana, I found her again, and I asked her to come on and talk to us about ADHD, because it's a new journey for me now. At this taping, I'm only like 3 weeks in, Dana. So this is really new to me. I want to welcome you and say I'm so excited that you're here to talk to us. And I have a bunch of questions, so everybody knows I'm actually organized. And this is how I lose my my banking bills. I put my notes on them, and then I just can't find my bills. But so we're going to start with Dana. Tell us just, obviously they always start with tell us a little about you. Just give me like the cliff note about you, and then I want to get into what ADHD is and what it is to you, and then I got some fun questions. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I am so excited to be here. And it was just, Tori. Okay, about me. Mm-hmm. I have ADHD, and it just swamped my life for so many years. And but I started to work through it and figure out how to do stuff. How to study so I could actually graduate from college, and how to be organized so I could actually stay married, and how to do the stuff that I just struggled with. And when I was in my mid-30s, I was a professional organizer because I had taught myself how to be organized, and I figured, heck, I can teach anybody. So I was at an organizing conference with one of my dear friends, Linda Anderson, who's also an ADHD coach now. And she said, Dana, have you heard about ADHD? And I hadn't at that point. And we were, to set the stage, we were in the hotel room. We were sharing a room. She's lying on the bed watching me get ready in the morning. And I'm bouncing around the room, singing songs, talking to myself, just being wacko. And that's what she said, have you heard of ADHD? I said no, but I found out about it, and lo and behold, finding out, and Tori, you've just been through this, it's like, oh my God, that's why I felt so different. That's why things just seem harder for me than they are for everybody else. And I've never felt like I was connected with the way things were supposed to run in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. He just has his own style. So thank you.
That's fine. I have one here somewhere. The other one's having dental surgery today.
Oh, it's okay. So go ahead. He's just, ignore the dog behind. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Gavin. It's all right. You can cuddles. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I have ADHD myself. I decided as a professional organizer, that wasn't enough. I wanted to really help people transform their lives. It's organizing. If you're just helping people clear up the clutter, it's a Band-Aid. And I don't like Band-Aids. I like to be part of an overall solution. So I trained to be a coach, an ADHD coach, and that was 20 some years ago now. And that's been my passion ever since, is helping people turn around ADHD lives. So
you brought in the thing of what is it exactly? What is ADHD? And we're going to get to the stigma and the benefits, because there are benefits to it, and the challenges. Because I think so many people, there's this stigma. So I want to know, what is it about? Why are we so afraid of this diagnosis, really? Why are we afraid of it?
I don't know why we're afraid of it. There's so much shame attached to it, and so many shoulds attached to it.
Mm.
Every time when I tell people what I do, then people start telling me it's fake and da da da, and it's just medication because they want to be on drugs, and it's got
Mhm.
nothing else that I know of has a stigma like this. And what it is, it's different. It's a different neural neural processing system. Our brains just work different than other people's brains.
And you bring up a good point, which is the idea of the stigma and our brain working differently. One of the things I really noticed, and I'm like full disclosure, I started taking the Adderall, even though I didn't want, yeah, Adderall, even though I didn't want to. And the first day, I was more focused and able to. One of the things I'm noticing too is that the cognitive skills, like I'm going, wait a minute, that might not be a good choice. I'm getting those memories of like how to differentiate. It's like my brain is almost working normal in a funny way, and it feels like I'm doing this a
Yeah.
little bit, just at first, because the things that I would sit and stew over, I'm able to go, you know what, that's going to work out. Now I have to go focus on this. So the medication has been an interesting journey because I'm not high. I mean, everybody says, oh, you get so high and you get,
No.
no, I'm not high. I'm just normal.
Yeah. I remember, Tori, I took Adderall for a couple of years, and
Oh.
the first, like you, the first time I took it, I remember my daughter was then tiny, and we were at a park, and to me, being a mom with a toddler at a park, it was just boring. Oh my God, how many? And I remember sitting there and thinking, whoa, this is what it feels like to have a brain. I can focus.
Yeah.
I'm not wanting to run off and do something that I find more interesting than pushing a toddler on a swing. And it was, it just is like, oh my God, this is what it's like to have a brain. It's like, you take these off, I can't see. You put them on, I can see. And
Yeah.
it's very similar.
And so, obviously I'm doing the medication now. And the thing is that I'm not opposed to it. I think that it's something that's showing me ways to do new skills. So I don't know if I'll go off it or if I'll stay on it. I'm in today learning the skills. So that brings me to you a little bit, which is talk to me about the challenges and what people look for. But I'd like to start in an ADHD way. Tell me about the blessings of ADHD. Let's start with, what are the really good things that people don't know about that they may be hiding these symptoms, like, which we'll talk about in a moment, because we're going to do this to ADHD, so they like it backwards. So, so what are the blessings? What are the really great things about having this?
I think we are very creative, often coming up with new ideas. Many people with ADHD are physically creative, painting, drawing, whatever, creating new things. But you and I are perfect examples of this in the businesses we've built.
Mm.
And this approach to life. It's coming up with new ideas, interesting ways of doing things, ways of solving problems, that I think is a huge blessing. There's an energy in
Mm-hmm.
many of us, not everybody, but many of us. There's this dynamic energy. There's intuition that comes along with it. This intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
and risk taking. One of the things that I say about me is, I jump off the cliff and build the parachute on the way down, because I don't think things through logically. But I just know, okay, we'll start it and then it'll work out. And I also think in a lot of us, there's an integrity, because
Mm-hmm.
we have learned early on we can't lie because we can't remember the lies, so we get caught. And if I know, for me, I was just always, I was like a cat covering the messes in the sandbox for years. And then I find I can't live like that anymore, because I can't remember what was there.
Mm.
Yeah. So often it comes with intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also an ability to be great in emergencies, great in tough situations. And there's also an authenticity that I think is beautiful.
And you bring up something too that I wanted to say too, which I'm noticing is that the hyper focus,
Yeah.
that it, because people were saying to me, well, how can you do readings, if you have ADHD? And I realized that intuition puts me in a hyper focus. So I can actually go deeply into my intuition with that deep hyper focus. And that hasn't changed with the medication. People were saying, is that going to take away your, and I'm like, no, it's actually added to my skill set, because now I can take that hyper focus and know that, like, for example, I'll avoid something, right? Because we'll get into the challenges now. Because the first thing is, when I know it's a difficult task, I'll avoid it. So that means I'll go to the fridge. Oh my goodness, a puppy, just anything to distract me. What I notice now, the difference, the challenge for me was that, and now the medication makes me go, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Okay, I'll tell you what. You sit down for 5 minutes, open up the file and start doing it. And if you don't want to do it, and I set the timer, 10 minutes. If you can't handle 10 minutes, you can go do something else. And inevitably, I'm in there for 2 hours getting the work done. Exactly. So that's the difference, is that I can use that hyper focus now in a way that, and know how to direct it, which has been very interesting. Just in these 3 weeks, it's been very interesting to notice. So that brings up the next question, which is, what are the real challenges that ADHDs who perhaps don't know they have it, or I can see, I think they know on some level that there's something wrong. Yeah. But what are the challenges? How do we hide it? What are the things that happen to us if we don't? And what are the symptoms?
Yeah, the symptoms really are, and attention deficit I think it's the wrong name.
It's like overattentive.
Yeah, it's not a deficit of attention. It is a definition of being able to pay attention to the right things at the right time, because sometimes there is over attention. So it's really an issue of stimulation, of brain stimulation. And we don't like boring. We don't like routine, and we don't like to do things that are hard. It's makes it so it's very challenging to function in the world like an adult. It's as though we got stuck somewhere in childhood. We missed all the lessons about, well, you got to show up when you're supposed to, and you got to do what you're supposed to do, even if you don't want to do it. It's like a toddler is running our brain. So, and that makes it really hard. It makes it, when you can't focus and you can't be organized and you can't manage your time, you can't be on time, it makes it hard to function like a grown-up in the world.
Does it eventually, I know that depression is a different animal, right? It's a completely different thing.
It's a different
but can it?
Animal.
I say animal all the time. Animal. I say animal. I always say banana too, about banana. But when people, like, for instance, for me, I'm just going to use my example. I noticed that when it just got so bad, like it had to get that bad, where I was depressed and I felt like I had magnets in my body and I couldn't get up. I mean, literally, it was that bad. So I wonder if, because for years it was, you have depression. And I was like, oh, okay, I have depression. But it's funny is when you're almost given sedatives to medicate something that is already, in a funny way, a depressant. Like, it's such an antithetical to me that you would take how do you say, speed, really? You're taking amphetamines to make everything work when you're already in that mode. So what I guess I'm asking in this is, when I discovered it, it had already created quite a depression in me. So I wonder if they often go together, or if they don't.
Yeah. There are many coexisting conditions that occur with ADHD. Depression, anxiety are two of the most frequent ones. And what we do with depression is, you need to tease out, is it that you're depressed because it's neurologically something that's happening in your body? It's a lack of serotonin in your body, which is the I won't get all chemical.
Yeah, I get it. I know what you, and just to get chemical, everybody, depression is really based with serotonin. And I think ADHD has another one, right? There's a
It's dopamine and norepinephrine mostly.
norepinephrine. That's the one I was really surprised about. I didn't understand what that meant. But as you're taking a sip of water, there's what you call uptake inhibitors, right? So we have, I think what it is that our uptake of dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin in that sense is really fast. So it goes quickly, and that creates a void of those feelings and experiences and the ability for our brain to connect in that way. So an inhibitor keeps those chemicals around us a little longer so that we can function. And I think that's kind of the way it.
No, and they don't really even know what's going
Well,
on.
that was kind of what I gathered, is that it was kind of like the idea of don't go away, stay a little longer.
Right. So it's the neurotransmitters, the dopamine, your brain, it may be there, but your brain can't use it.
Okay.
And so you have to be able to, the medication helps you be able to use it. So the ADHD stimulant medications don't create the dopamine, they make it more available to your brain, and they work the different medications work in different ways.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry.
Because I don't want to lose the thread of the depression, Tori, because this is important.
Right.
So what a doctor needs to figure out, if they're a good doctor, or people need to figure out on their own, are they depressed because they can't do the basic functions of life, like pay the bills on time, get their taxes done, keep the house clean, organized, walk the dog, whatever, do their paperwork for work? Are they depressed because life is hard because they can't do the basic things that are required to function as an adult? Or are they depressed just because they're depressed? And to me, that's the big difference. And so often when you start treating the ADHD, it helps make it so the person's not as depressed anymore. Oh my goodness, I can get things done. Wow, yeah. I'm not depressed. So that's really the difference. But many people do have depression along with ADHD.
And you bring up another point, which is one of the things that I noticed in me, is that I was always afraid to leave my house. I got very anxious. The idea of going out to do something outside of, So,
oh my gosh.
I know, especially me, like people go, oh, you're so out there. I'm like, when I have a plan, I could go.
Yeah.
But, there have been, events around town. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I don't want to go. And what I noticed is ever since I started this medication, it's like, oh, I've got an event tomorrow, and I make a point to go. So I'm noticing that my brain is working a little differently. So that's very interesting to hear about. So let's go into the idea of, what does a coach do? And let's back up, because I want to just get to there in a second. So to get diagnosed, let's just start there.
Yeah.
I actually had a doctor for a few years who thought I was depressed. And finally I came in a few weeks ago and I said, and I explained stuff, and I started rattling off all these symptoms. And she went, we have a psychiatrist I want you to talk to. I think you have ADHD. And I haven't wanted to say that to you. And it's funny that doctors even place the stigma, especially MDs, because they go, I haven't wanted to, and I was like, and as I'm thinking about it, when we talked about stigma, the thing of like, why wouldn't you want to place that on me? I can get help, let me get help. And I think there is a thing of like preventing you from the pain of that. And I've always
not treating it.
Yeah. I've been
nervous. I won't go there. I won't go there.
No. But I think the important thing, the point we're making, is the stigma idea of even the doctors want to try and treat you. And when it's outside their realm, they're a little nervous about giving you over to a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. So it was very interesting. So I went to see the psychiatrist. Within 5 minutes, she looked at me and she said, I think you've got this. She said, yeah, she looked at my quiz. And by the way, everyone, you take a basic quiz and it has answers, and I know they're online and all this stuff. And I'm sure I'm going to ask Dana about some of that. But basically you take a quiz and then you kind of go, oh God, that's me. Like how it's almost when you said, forget the keys, all that kind of stuff. I went, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, how did you know me? Like, I feel like somebody just ripped open my apartment, my house, and went, you're doing this, 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 and this. So we take a quiz. And the first thing obviously is to see your doctor. But I think sometimes doctors don't, they don't really, I think the thing is requesting to see a psychiatrist or someone who's capable of diagnosing this. Would that be, how do we get that help if our doctor says, oh, you're probably just a little depressed, let me throw you a Prozac.
Yeah. And the doctors shy away from the stimulant medication for ADHD. It's a nightmare for them to have to manage it, and people are after the meds, not
Control.
ADHD adults.
Mm-hmm.
but we're the ones that don't want, oh no, I don't want to take that,
That's exactly it. I felt that way. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to take that. But other people. So anyway, the doctors resisted, and Tori, I do not. Oh, where did people go? I now just remembered your question. So, you've got to find a doctor who understands ADHD. It does not have to be a psychiatrist. It can be a family doctor. It can be a neurologist, a psychologist. It can be, but you have to find somebody who understands ADHD and how to treat it. Because just giving somebody medication, Tori, you're lucky it's worked well. You're lucky the Adhd worked well.
Yeah.
But often you have to try different medications, or there are side effects, and then you have to do what we call titrate, which is increase the dose, and it's an art. It's an art.
It really is. I can see that.
Yeah, and so it's not easy. But the first place to start is start with your family doctor and talk to them, see what they say, and if you're not liking the answers they're giving you, then go further. Just don't give up and
don't give up on it. Yeah, I think that's really important. Now for me, it got so severe that, I went. But I want to say one thing to that too, which is, if you can't afford it, go to a clinic. Call the clinic and say, does anyone there have experience with ADHD? I want to be tested. And, it's okay to ask. And if you have some records, it's good to have them, because they're going to be very reluctant to give it out unless they've worked with you for a while, so, which makes sense. Yeah. But don't give up. If you think that there's a better life for you, there is. So
the way I say it, Tori, is you have to fight for the life that you want to have. And you have to fight to have the medication you need. You have to fight your inclination to not do the stuff you need to do to make your brain work better, the diet, the sleep, the exercise. You have to fight to stick to the routines and the skills, and keep pushing at it and trying, but trying in the right way. And it does get easier.
Yeah.
It just gets easier. What I do with my clients is we're working on consistency. In building consistency gradually over time, to go from maybe being on time 30% of the time more consistently to be on time 90% of the time, 95% of the time. So that's really what learning to live as an adult with ADHD that's managing their ADHD. It's this game of building consistency.
So you talk about consistency, and you talk about, coaching. So as a coach, what is your goal with your client, and how do you do it when they come to you? How did that happen?
My goal with my clients is to stop working with them eventually, which means they're getting their stuff together. Right. That means we can have this conversation and say, hey, we start with goals. What are they trying to achieve? And often it's around routines, structure, managing their time, being more organized, dealing with clutter. And then I always throw in there, because people come to me, they don't know this yet, is that we also want to focus on getting your brain to be the best functioning brain you can possibly have. So we have to take care of your brain. And then we also have to help you understand ADHD, how it affects your life, how to increase, you have to increase awareness. That's a huge part of it, is awareness. And then all the other little tricks and tips and things that I teach them. So it really is, it's fascinating to work with, because there's so many different components. It hits everybody differently.
So you just brought something up I do want to ask about. You said train your brain.
Yeah.
So can you tell me, and share with us the difference perhaps between an ADHD brain and a brain that can function, or how would you approach it? I mean, I'm just seeing that as what I heard, but it may not be what's the difference between the brains. How do you look at it with training the brain? What does that mean? I mean, I'm telling you what I heard, but what does it mean to you?
What I mean is it's training yourself to be aware, to pay attention. So, the different parts I'm not going to go into all the brain neurology.
Okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We can be very unaware people. We can just kind of go bashing through life, not realizing what we're doing. We'll all of a sudden realize, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be working, but I seem to be out in the yard picking flowers. Or we just aren't aware people. And we have to learn the skills. We have to learn how to build that awareness. So I like to think of it as that I'm observing myself as I go through life. And so I can notice what I'm doing. Is that what I intend to be doing? Do I need to adjust? Am I deciding I want to procrastinate or not? What is it that I'm doing? Where am I doing it? What is my impact on other people? Because we can be absolutely oblivious to so much in life.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm listening to you. Go ahead. I'm agreeing.
Well, I don't want to talk too much. But
I want you to.
But a lot of what I do is training my clients, helping them learn how to become a self-observer, how to build that awareness. And then it's once we're aware, so we may be aware that, well, we're deciding to leave the laundry in the dryer instead of folding it. Then how do we motivate ourselves to actually fold the laundry and put it away? And so it's awareness, and then we have to add the action into the awareness.
It's very interesting you're saying that, because really what you're talking about in some ways are the techniques of a cognizant brain. Like you're really, and that's something that is, from what I'm reading, and I'm learning about this, that the cognizant brain is what isn't as functioning as well. It hasn't, functioned as well in ADHD people. And it's very interesting because I noticed that with my business. Because what I do is just what you do, but in a different way. I teach people to be a neutral observer intuitively and with their feelings. So I have figured out a way to bypass all that cognitive stuff and be able to do this intuitively. But as I'm learning what you're sharing, I'm seeing the real value in the cognizant development, and I'm able to see more now. Like I'm able to see when I'm talking too much, or I'm able to see, and these are just like, believe me, everybody, as I say this to Dana, I'm a newbie at this. This is not, I'm like going, ooh, this is so exciting, because I can just say, okay, I know I laundry in the dryer. I used to be do the laundry, that's it all day. Now I'm put the laundry in, dishes, I can deal with all that. I have to focus now on this. And I'm noticing how I'm talking to my brain differently, because the stuff I know how to do is observe myself, intuitively, but not observe myself in life.
Yeah.
And that's been it's really interesting what we as ADHD people can teach people, because our brain has that synapse and we think differently. The tools we have and the blessings are so huge that I'm almost sad for the people that are living with the stigma, because I think this is the coolest thing ever. It's kind of like being able to do a hoverboard, or fly.
Yeah, Dr. Hallowell, Ned Hallowell, who's been talking about ADHD forever. He's in Harvard Medical School, and he calls it a race car brain. We have race car brains. And so and it's this brain, but there's these wonderful, they're exciting, they're fast, the things we can think of, it's just boom. Now it's amazing. But with a race car, you can't just take it down to the gas station and put in normal gas and oil. You've got normal tires. You have to treat it specially. You have to treat it differently.
And there is a special tune-up. I've struggled for years with assistants working with me, because they'll hand me a piece of paper and they'll come back and go, okay, so we would need to go over that paper. I'm like, what paper? So it's that kind of stuff. But one of the things I've noticed is that because of the hyper focus, like that's the only thing I know so far, right? And I want to bring up, don't go anywhere, everybody, because I'm going to bring up how you work with people in a moment, because that's what I want to, get into, why they work with you and what that's about. And for me, I noticed yesterday or 2 days ago, I recognized my assistant's, I want to say synapses, things that she can't do, right? And I'm expecting her to do all of what I can't, and that's just not possible. And so I've started to recognize in other people where I'm over expecting. So I was able to sit back and talk to the person who's her supervisor and say, this is what I'm feeling. How do I say it in a way that I'm not going to hurt her feelings? And it was because I needed to work out how to present it so that it wasn't putting my stuff on her. So I just basically was able to say, listen, we're bringing in a third person who's really good at user experience. You're great at implementing and organizing. I suck at that. I suck at user experience, but I'm really good at the material. So what I was able to say is, I need cognizant brain. I need you to give me the material like this, but here's the overview of what you need to do, but only give me this part, and then I can do what I'm supposed to do. And she went, okay. Because as an ADHD, I am so hyper-focused. If I have those 7 things and I know what they need to be, I can almost do them in double time. Mm-hmm. So and I'm just at the beginning of this journey. So that brings up a thing. How do it know? Like, how do you know? Like when someone comes to you, do you find that they come to you knowing they have ADHD, or are they curious about it, or do you discover it? So what is your coaching style with people? Do you do an intake? I mean, what's your process with them?
Yeah, I do an initial conversation, because I make sure that I can help them.
Right.
I have a real specific coaching style. I'm a skills-oriented coach. I'm an action-oriented coach. Some people just want to talk. They don't want to change. They just want to talk. And I don't do that gracefully. I want to work with people who want to get stuff done. Now, obviously, it's on ADHD time, which means they may get a whole bunch done one week and then nothing the next week, and nothing the next week. And I need to be compassionate and understand that. And but it's truly, I want to teach people how to live differently. And so typically people find my website and read my blog or see me interviewed or something like that. And then they'll contact me, and we have an initial, just a 30-minute conversation. And so I'm asking what are their goals, but what I'm really doing is discerning, is this a person I think I can work well with and I can help? Because with ADHD, we have enough failures in our life. We have enough things that are frustrating and that aren't working. I don't want to be one more piece of the problem. I want to be a part of the solution. Mm-hmm. And so I have to be really careful about that. And then if we both say yes, and they have the money to pay me and all of that good stuff, then we decide at what level they're going to work with me. I have my ADHD, the ADHD Success Club is my group program. Mm-hmm. And then people can also add private coaching onto that. So it's,
how does that work with the Success Club? I mean, do you have limits to the time, or does it go by the month? How do people go in and out? Like, how do you structure it?
We are actually starting September 10th, next Tuesday, for the year. So we could run through July. And every week we have a different topic. We have units and modules and a different topic. And so the way that we structure it is it's interactive. So I'm teaching things, but then they can also raise their hand, and I can control who's talking and for how long. I got to imagine you have a number of people with ADHD on the phone. We have to, have to keep it muted. So I don't remember what your question was. I'm sorry.
That's totally fine. I said, how do you work with people? And I asked specifically about how the coaching works in terms of, is it by the month, or you explain just
it's
your
by
program?
The month.
Okay.
It's by the month.
Okay.
And so I do request a 4-month commitment for
Okay.
private coaching. Success Club, they can try it. If they don't like it, they can stop.
Okay.
Because I want people to be in the right place. We don't know something until we try it. And
Mhm.
often things seem really shiny and exciting and we'll sign up for it. And then we think, oh my gosh, this isn't the right thing at all. So I do want people to be able to, if they join the Success Club and they don't like it, they can stop the next month.
Mhm.
But it is a month-to-month thing. Some people are in their 4th year because they keep realizing year after year they get better and better and better at it. Some people are in their 3rd year, and then we have a bunch of new people coming in too. So it's
And do you find that people like some, and I don't know about this, but do you find some people come in and they're just so frustrated with their condition that they can't stay in a
yeah,
group?
yeah.
And speaking to those people, what are the things we can do if we're people that get easily frustrated? Because I feel that that's been a big part of my ADHD. Is like I would drop things. What do you say to people that quit easily? How can you give them a tip to say, are you sure it's you or it's your brain, and how do you differentiate?
Yeah, it's I like them to start to notice, what are the internal conversations, what's
Mm,
going on in there, and then are they just giving up because it's hard? And because the shift that we have to make with ADHD is we can do hard things, we
mm,
can do boring things, we can do things that we don't want to do, and that takes noticing why we're quitting something,
mm,
um, and noticing, and some people get frustrated, they do get frustrated easily, and they'll if something's not working quite right, they think they blame it on me. That's fine, I can deal with that. But I need them to be able to be aware enough so they can start to discern what's going on, what's the frustration. Is it that it's not the right program for them, or is it that they're expecting too much too fast? Because we're talking about lifetimes of pattern. ADHD is a lifetime thing. This isn't something that's popped up. It may start to show later in life when someone's done what we call hit the wall. So
mm.
you maybe were able to function along, function, and then something happens and you hit the wall and you can't function anymore. And but it's a lifetime condition. So we are untangling a lifetime knot of ways of doing things, thinking of things, looking at things, and acting. And we have to reweave that into a new way that works better for somebody.
So when you say that to me, I go, "Oh my gosh!" So I go, "I'm not." Just to tail off that just for a moment, because I've got a couple final things that I want to ask. A couple more things. You just said the tangle, and what interests me is how would I know if I'm ADHD? So I come to you, and what kind of goals do you find that people come in with that that you can help them with? So for example, I might say, I'm really challenged with relationships. I have no friends right now because in the past I've always had friends based on my business, right? My voiceover, or people who are in that group. Now I'm having to really recognize it's about me and presenting me and learning about being a friend. So do people come in with that kind of goal, or I can't keep a job, or what are their that you can help them with?
Yeah. So I am not someone that works with relationships. I don't work with people. There are specialized coaches that work with those things. And I do want to say, if somebody, they have ADHD, they want to work with a coach, make sure you have a coach that is trained and knows how to work with ADHD. Normal coaches work
Mm-hmm.
differently. I'm trained in both worlds. And I can tell you, if you work with a normal coach and expect them to be able to help you with your ADHD, it's going to be frustrating. It's not going to work.
Yeah, their
Um,
brains are different. I mean, that's the thing I've noticed. Even when I've worked with coaches in the past, they come at me in a way that I go, no, no, I can't do it. Like, it's really amazing. It's almost like they're speaking like a different language.
and they're expecting you to be able to do things in sequentially, in
Yeah.
this speed, and in this way, and you can't. We don't. We can do things really quickly, but we can also be really slow. And we need to have somebody that's got this breadth of understanding and compassion that an ADHD coach will have. So anyway, to understand it.
No,
So
that's very important. So I want to just underline that, because I want to say this. Don't think you're off track. You're actually on track, because, and I want to validate that, because that's important, everybody. There is a huge difference between just talking to a friend or a coach about these issues, and even a friend who's a coach, as opposed to someone who really has a handle, like you do, 20 years of experience in this, so that when I come to you, you're going to know how my brain is operating. And that cuts out, I would say, about 70% of the let me get to know you stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to know me that way. And so when I come in and go, blah, 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 you're going to say, okay, I get it. Right. Exactly. And your breathe means give me a chance to say something. So go ahead. And so they come in, I come in with, and it's good to know you don't specialize in relationship stuff. What do you specialize in? And are there people that you work with that you'd say, you'll do better with this person?
Yes. Yeah. So ADHD coaches, the more experienced coaches, tend to be real specific. So some are career coaches, some are work with relationships, some work just with kids. I work just with adults, predominantly business owners and professionals, who want to be more organized, who want to be working on their priorities, getting their important stuff done, managing their time better. And so those are the skills that I work with. And of course the other things, broadens out. But if it's people who want more routine structures, control, organizing, time management, those kinds of stuff, also they can reach their priorities and create just more simple, successful lives.
You said something interesting, which is, if someone can improve in their business life, can those skills be applied to other areas?
Oh, yes, of course. Because if I'm teaching a basic skill, like the beginning, middle, and end. So
Okay.
everything we do has a beginning, a middle, and an end to it.
Oh.
Think about it. You're brushing your teeth. Beginning, middle, and end. You get your toothbrush out, put toothbrush it, and then the end is putting everything away and going off about your day. With ADHD, we jump into the middle. We ignore the beginning, we ignore the end, we jump in. Well, we may have to put the toothpaste on, but we brush our teeth, throw everything down on the counter, and leave, which leaves clutter. So that's just a little example of a tiny thing, but everything we do, projects, work, clients, everything we do, life, beginning, middle, and end. And so when we can start to identify that in maybe the business world, then we can transfer that over into the personal world. So it is all very transferable. No, people aren't just work and home.
Right.
We are multidimensional beings. Everything is connected.
And I think you're right. I think it is, in some ways, I think it might be easier to use career, use business, like I can't hold a job. That would be something too, is that, thank God I never had to, but I'd have been the most fired ever. That would have been in the Pictionary. That would have been a picture of me. But so I'm going to ask you a question off the cuff really quick, because I know I asked you this because obviously I do a lot of true crime.
Yeah.
So so if an ADHD person, and I wonder what kind of, like, what would you say a criminal who
Can I give the answer I gave in the email, or do you want me to give the official one? Because, okay, I'm going to be honest here. I told Tori, I don't.
You don't do crime. No, you don't do
crime. I don't know. But I told her the ADHD person, they'd be the one who left their wallet on the scene.
So they're basically
their car keys in the getaway car,
So basically, because in a lot of criminal investigations, they call things an organized killer versus a disorganized killer. So I would put us maybe on the extreme if you do have to do it, but.
Yeah, but then I don't know that you can categorize it, Tori, if you really think about it, because there could be somebody who's the impulsive, anger, disorganized, just kill them. But then there also is the person, if they throw their hyper focus into it, and they really plan it and structure it, and there's this devious sneakiness and thinking of devious ways to do things that people with ADHD, I mean, we're good at that.
Yeah. We're good at structure and planning when we focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you could go either way. You really could.
Yeah, I wonder how many people. I mean, there's statistics, I think, of how many people who are untreated with ADHD. Do you know, like, the just approximate, like, in the world? Do we?
I don't know the numbers, but because I don't remember numbers. It's something I do. So there, but prisons are full of people with untreated, undiagnosed ADHD, because people often will turn to cocaine. They'll turn to something because it's this effort to try and get their brain to calm down, to quiet down. And so they go down these or stimulation, high risk activities. Your brain, if you skydive, your brain focuses. If you're robbing a bank, your brain's going to focus. So it's doing things, risk taking can make your brain focus. Driving too fast, doing things that are risky, make your brain focus. And so a lot of us, people that aren't diagnosed, are spending their world trying to get their brain to shut the heck up and focus.
Wow. That's a big one. That's a really big one. And I do want to underline it. Cause I said, people don't always know about it. And I've covered a lot here, but, I want to ask you, just in this, we may have covered it, but I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle, which is, if we had to say, how is the ADHD brain different? If we have somebody who is if you will, a normal, let me relanguage normal. I want to say a functioning brain versus
neurotypical is the buzzword, which I hate that word.
That's okay. So the neurotypical, like, and in English, like, what would that, can you give me some things that would look different between someone working with an ADHD? Like, if I'm working with somebody and they're ADHD, are they going to drive me crazy if I'm not?
Yeah. Because they're going to expect, if you don't have ADHD, you're working with somebody who does, you're going to expect them to be where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it, and they're not going to be able to do that unless they're working on it and are managing it. And they're all variations in severity of ADHD, and so it can drive somebody absolutely crazy.
Well, it can also, because I hear a lot from people about having a job and their supervisor just is all over the map. Yeah. And so that supervisor, it could be that you're dealing with something like this because you bring your stuff in, they lose it, they forget to look at it, they're not paying attention to you.
It's the idea of the week or of the day. I mean, you're going on one path and you think you're working on this, and then it's this new idea, and this ADHD supervisor can say, hey, no, we're not doing that anymore, we're doing this. And then you work on that a little bit and they get bored with that and they jump to the next thing, or they're losing stuff, they're not communicating, they're not there, they're if they are there, they're not paying attention. Yeah, it can drive a neurotypical person wacko. So really it's an ability to focus at will,
follow through.
Follow through.
It's almost funny because when I owned my recording studio in LA, I would say it was almost a joke. I'd walk in, everybody would be sitting around. And by the way, ADHDs, we're very generous. We're very, I find very generous, very kind. I would make sure I had a big, lunch for everybody every Friday. There was, a lot of like, oh yeah, you can go early, but the thing that I noticed is that I'd walk in and go, you guys, I have an idea. And everybody would jump up and run.
Yeah, of course they would.
Because it would mean it not necessarily more work, but it would actually invalidate what they were already working on.
Yeah.
And so the experience people had of working with me was being constantly behind the 8 ball. And that's how I was feeling. So they would say, I'm always behind the 8 ball with you. And I would think, God, I feel that way. How do I change that? How do I make it okay for them? And so I was aware of it, but I didn't do anything about it because I didn't know.
Yeah.
So how can we approach people if we think that someone perhaps that we're working with, or somebody at a company. Obviously we'd have to go to a supervisor or what have you, but how do we like let people know that we think there's something wrong with the style in which things are coming across? Like, in other words, you know, for me, I would come in and go, you know, something, this pattern is reminding me of XYZ. You know, this is reminding me of this because here's what I'm experiencing, and we need to change some of this. I don't know how a person working at a company could.
Yeah, well, if you're in a supervisory role and you feel like a person has ADHD tendencies that are getting in their way of their career, I mean, then then you need to bring it up and talk to them about it. Have you heard of this? As far as just people in general, it's like I did with you. I mean, if people ask, I'll tell them, but I don't diagnose.
No, you were great. You were like, yep, maybe. Like, you know,
because most people don't, you know, I could have come in, oh, Tori, you know, I think you have ADHD. Have you heard of it? Do you know about it? And most people would say no and push back and run away. So I have learned the hard way over many years is so people often just have to figure stuff out on their own.
And you're bringing up a good point, which is if there's large turnover in your company, if you can't keep people, if you're seeing that where you work, you know, is there a way that people in that position, for example, could get somebody like you or say, hey, we should bring Dana in to talk to everybody about ADHD. And if people have some of these issues and working with them, she's obviously not you know, she's not able to diagnose it. But if you think this is for you, you can see, you know, if it's something that relates to you, you can see your doctor, you know. Yeah. But I wonder if there's a Dana that, you know, does that, like, you know, is that something that if someone says, wow, you know, my company would benefit from you coming in as a guest speaker?
If someone pays me enough, and it would be a lot, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you look at a corporation though, and I'm thinking of, you know, corporations where people are really losing employees, it's not just because, you know, they're unhappy, it's because something's going wrong in the structure of it. And almost always it's the way that they're treated or the way that they're expected to present. And I'm really seeing a lot of this could be some of this.
It could.
I mean, I don't know, you know.
There would be a lot of things you would need to look at in the company to decide what is going on. And
even a mental health week. I mean, I'm even thinking of a mental health week, you know, really bringing that awareness to, because the thing that I want to say, I don't think ADHD is a mental issue, is it?
They call it, but I don't think it is. It's just, we operate differently. There's a guy named Tom Hartman who was in the old timers in ADHD, and he used to call it the hunter-gatherers. I mean, if you've gone back a million years, the people with ADHD would be the hunters. We'd be the ones out slaying the saber-toothed tigers and running off and doing stuff and coming back to the camp with the food and staying for a couple of days and running off again and doing something. And then there's the farmers and the gatherers, and they're the ones that are going to stay there, and they're going to plant the fields and tend the fields and do what needs to be done. I think it's just a different brain way of working. That doesn't make sense.
No, it's where the brain works differently. Yeah,
and over the development of humankind, we needed that. But now we're in this place that, what are we? We're 10 fingers and sitting in front of a computer all day, or we have to keep a house running and all the different stuff that's going on in life, and the ADHD brain, if we're not in the right job, the right situation, we're not going to fit, because we want to be out doing more interesting stuff.
And are there jobs where ADHD people can excel?
There are people who have ADHD that have never been diagnosed that are excelling. I mean, emergency room doctors, there are nurses, people like that, and people that are working in construction or
in the middle.
Yeah, all kinds.
They come in the middle. That's interesting. That's because you said, and this is really interesting, like an emergency room doctor doesn't know your history. No. They're just coming in the middle, and you got a problem, and they're fixing it, and then they move on.
Right, they go on to the next thing.
Wow.
So there are a lot of people with ADHD that have very successful lives. The trick, you got to find the right career and you got to be with the right person, and that's going to make ADHD incredibly manageable.
Wow, that was great. That's really helpful. So, as we're wrapping up, two things. What are the takeaways from this that you want people to get about ADHD? If you could list, like 3 or 4, if there were a couple things that just came to you in this conversation, what would you want them to walk away with?
You're not broken. You think differently than society needs and wants you to think, but you are not broken. And yeah, probably done some stupid stuff and a lot of embarrassing things over your life, and you can, and I mean, it's just, but you cannot dwell on that. You have to dwell on moving forward, and also don't settle for struggling with your life. You have to fight for the brain you want to have. You have to fight for the life that you want to live. And there are options, there are opportunities. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be this, straight line of, oh, suddenly my life is perfect again. But you are not broken, and you have to look forward and decide what it is you want to do, who you want to be, and learn to live intentionally in that way.
Can a brain be trained that way without medication?
Yeah.
Can it be, so in other words, the goal of medication at least could be, I don't know, that eventually,
I'd say yeah, but it does
everybody.
It depends on the person, and if they treat their brain right, starting to get enough sleep and eating a healthy protein-based diet is going to take you a long way. I mean, a tired brain is going to look like an ADHD brain.
Wow, yeah.
But people with ADHD have a lot of challenges of sleep. So that's a huge thing we have to untangle and unravel and reweave. The medication, for me, it was like you've done, Tori, it gave me a few years to see, oh, this is how a typical brain works, and this is what I need to do to start to emulate that, and to build those systems and structures in my life. So that really gave me the platform to be able to change. But not everybody experiences that, and some people, so it's all so individual. It depends on the person.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you, and I want to just let everybody know, Dana's information will be right below. Her site is chock full. It's danarayburn.com. It's right down below on this page. And I just want you to know, just if you're interested at all, if you think that maybe this is something you're relating to, just go in and read some of those articles. Some of the things on your site are just like truth bumps. I'm just like, I remember going, oh my gosh, so there's so much on her site that will point you in the right direction. And I think that the biggest thing I want to say to you is that you're not alone. I love what Dana said, because that's the biggest fear about something like this, is that you're all alone in the world, and you're not. And there are lots of organizations as well that have meetings and support groups. I mean, there is a group for everything now. So really, if you think this is something you have, go to one of the support groups. There's stuff all over. So definitely don't sit and think about it. Like, just take a little action and try to get a little movement. And I want to say one thing that's been huge for me, and Dana, I think you'll relate to this, is that knowing that it's a problem with cognition, right? So in other words, I can't sit still long enough to learn something. But I don't know how many times, maybe 3-5 times I took Photoshop, could never learn it. And now, as my brain is medicated, I'm taking courses, and I'm able to go, oh, this connects to this, and I'm not as frustrated with it because I know it's a process. So I just want you to know there is help in sight, whether you decide to go coaching or you see a psychiatrist. Whatever you choose to do something to find out your truth. And I think that's the biggest thing. So Dana, you are just the best ever. I just love that, you have this. I feel like, ooh, girls club, ADHD girls club, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and there are always solutions to get you to live the life you want, as Dana has said, and I just encourage you to check her out. And thank you, everybody. I'll be back. I'm going to be doing more stuff on ADHD. please leave your comments below. And I know that once I put this up, Dana will be happy to come in and answer some of your comments. I'll tell you how. And I hope you all have a really, really wonderful day, evening, whenever you're listening to this. And just remember, there's always a solution, and it's not always bad. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.